Should have.
He's not in lobby. Do you know what the password is, mate?
Sent it to him like a... Yeah.
Cheers.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Flux Motorsport TV. You are, of course, joining us here at the Hockenheim ring in Hockenheim, Germany for today's second race in the Formula Renault Championship season. After a rather thin grid last time around, looks as though our drivers are just starting to settle in. We are currently in the first 5 minutes of today's qualification session. 15 minutes yet remaining there inside this session for these drivers to get the tracks down on. That timing board, Bruce Law currently topping it out with Dirk Diggler in second, Tyjo 12-12 in third, and it looks like Speedy Gone Hogs practices prevailed, putting him in fourth position, just outside of a podium in the qualification sort of running, but enough for second row on the grid. I am, of course, Murphy GBR. And I am joined today on the microphone, who's working my cameras, by Lecky 2000. A very good morning to you, Lecky. Hope you're well.
Good morning, Murph. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem, not a problem. So, yep, second race in. Had a bit of an anticlimactic run last time around, which you actually took part in and around Brands Hatch GP. Hopefully, a few more drivers out on track today around Hockenheim, and a much more sort of traditional circuit to open wheel championships. Brands Hatch used to feature, but not too much anymore. What do you reckon of this one? Are we going to see another Bruce Law dominance, or do you reckon now that we've got Fast AF Gamer involved and Speedy finding a bit of form, perhaps we'll see a bit of an upset?
I think potentially upsets could come from anywhere on the grid at this stage. I think that Luna was putting in some reasonable lap times in the practice sessions. He seems to have the car running pretty well. I think more importantly here is tyre degradation and what's going to happen with the guys throughout the race on the tyre pressures, because putting in a quick lap time of the 123s, 124s, which we can see now, is not going to be a consistent race pace. So I think that's going to play much more of a part in today's race than out and out speed. Yeah. So, but Bruce will probably still do well. I mean, he usually does fare okay, as long as he gets clean away from the first couple of laps. So I expect still good things from Bruce, but yeah, tyre degradation I think is key.
Just looking, we've got Bruce Law out on track at the moment, along with Dirk Diggler. Speedigon Hogg also putting in some times, and Rock G, our South African driver, unable to make it last week, but he is going to be featured in today's starting grid. Yet set a time at the moment. We are currently observing the outside of Ty Joe's pit box, so we will need to get that camera changed and hopefully catch some action on track. There we go, flashing over to Dirk Diggler. He was already out on track, so this one should be a hot lap. Let's try and have a look at his lines. Can definitely run quick in these cars. 2.7 seconds off the pace of the provisional pole sitter Bruce Law at the moment. And as Lecky touched upon there, tyre degradation is going to be a major feature, as it will be in all of Flux Motorsports championships, operating under accelerated tyre wear. And the weather conditions today around Hockenheim is going to be a mixture of clear skies and clouds, so temperatures are going to be up there. No rain forecast for today, so that's going to be a blessing to some of the drivers, and also occurs to some as well. I know we've had a little bit of chat going on throughout the week about people hopeful for a bit of wet weather racing, but we do operate using real world conditions here at Flux Motorsport, so what you're seeing on screen will be a prediction to what the actual weather will be like today in and around Hockenheim. Perhaps not quite as blue as the skies are looking at the moment, though. It's an absolutely gorgeous day around this fantastic old circuit.
Yeah, I think we were expecting from looking at the weather reports earlier, around about the 28 to 30 degree mark we're expecting for the start of the race. So should be fair conditions, nice and warm for the soft slick tyres, which is going to be great for grip, but not great for tyre degradation. So again, I think that's playing its part into this race. So interesting to watch. Interesting to watch what the guys do with the tyre pressure to account for that.
Well, they don't actually have a soft and hard compound in these cars, Lucky. So
that's right.
It is just the one slick compound for these Formula Renaults. So they all will be on the same tyres. None of them, I don't think, will be opting for. I do believe it's maybe performance tyre. I'm not too sure, but either way, I know that whenever I've tried to use these in the past, the game just glitches out. So they do have intermediates and wets at the disposal. As well as, I think, some all-weather tyres, which are pretty much useless in all situations. So they are all going to be on the same compound of tyres. It looks as though Luna Zodiac is just taking a break there at a very inconvenient place. We'll have to wait and see whether or not he's crashed out, because we've just seen, I think that might have been Fast AF Gamer just passing straight through him. So Luna Zodiac may potentially have a bit of a connection issue there. We'll have to try and keep an eye out on that. But as I was saying, car setups will prove quite crucial to how the tyres degrade on this track. Hockenheim, a good mixture of cambered turns, some flat sections as well. That's going to spread the pressure across the whole width of the tyre face. But lots of slight cambered corners, especially the sort of close sections around here that we can see. Minimal camber, but that's going to allow the drivers to set their toes up on the car setup to make sure it's a fine balance between tyre degradation and mechanical grip from those tyres. Currently tracking.
Sorry, sorry, Mo, just to say a little bit about Hockenheim, just whilst you mentioned it. The Hockenheim actually was redesigned back in early 2000s Hockenheim basically was redesigned for the F1 circuit, so particularly conducive to an open wheel setup, I think. So one of the Formula Renaults around here, and the tighter Nord curve as it is, which I think was the main redesign that they did recently in the 2002 remap of the track, should actually be quite conducive to this car setup. So there's a little bit of history about Hockenheim, but as you well know, steeped in history, I think Hockenheim. Been going since the early days of racing, since the 1930s. So this is the latest reiteration of this track, but certainly not the last, I think.
Yeah, indeed. So back on with Fast AF Gamer at the moment, aka Matthew. He's currently trying to do his best to knock Bruce Law off that top spot. 7 minutes 47 seconds remaining of this qualification session. Lineup looks as though it's running the same. Bruce Law sat in pole position at the moment with Fast AF Gamer just behind him in second. Tyjo doing enough for third. Tyjo 1212 being our only driver inside this championship, currently playing on a gamepad. So all of the rest of the drivers out in the field running with a steering wheel setup. Tyjo 1212, however, is doing this the hard way via a gamepad. Must have some stable thumbs, that's for sure. But Dirk Diggler currently doing enough for fourth place, with Speedy Gone Hog in fifth and Rock G 007 in sixth position. Looks as though Lunar Zodiac did get disconnected. Looks as though potentially having some connection issues there. He is currently playing from Australia though, so that is going to have a bit of ping latency perhaps affecting him. Hopefully we'll be able to get him in the remaining 6 minutes and 50 seconds of this qualification session. Otherwise it's going to be a 6-car grid, I'm afraid. Back on over to Speedy Gone Hog. He had a fantastic performance inside the GT1s on Thursday. That was a great race for anybody that caught it. If you haven't been able to watch that one, head on over to our YouTube channel. All of our championships are actually split up into playlists there, so you can go over to the GT1s and catch up with that one. With our man Lecky 2000 in the box with NRP for that one. I was actually involved on track. I had a very forgettable race. However, Speedy Gone Hog got himself up there into his first Flux Motorsport podium, where Bruce Law actually took it yet another top spot. His fourth win in 4 races. He's looking to try and make this 5 out of 5. He has actually got pole position in 3 of those as well. I think it was Kov Karl that ended up just managing to take away that pole position bonus point from him in the GT1s. Let's see whether or not anybody will be able to do it today in the Formula Renaults. Just to explain a little bit about how this works for anybody that's tuning in for the first time, as we see Bruce Lowe there making a slight mistake. Looks as though he just caught his outside tyres just on the wall, trying to make sure he uses all of that track. But yeah, the running order for Flux Motorsport races, we have a 20-minute qualification session, which then goes into a 45-minute race, where a tyre wear will be accelerated, damage will be set to performance impacting, and all realistic driving aids are enabled. So if the car doesn't have it, these drivers don't have it. So within that 45 minutes, mandatory pit stops are disabled, so these guys will come into the pits whenever they need either some fuel, tyres, or a repair to the car. So basically it's all in the driver's hands as to managing the balance of the car, the balance of their speed, and when they do or don't push. And if this sounds like something you'd want to get involved in, along with the other community aspects that we offer here at Flux Motorsport, then head on over to www.fluxmotorsport.com and you'll find information on that site on how you can join up via our Discord, as well as any other information about what it is that we do. Alternatively, you can follow us on all of our social media outlets, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the rest, to make sure that you don't miss any of the news and reviews that will be coming up from us here at Flux Motorsport. Looks as though CMC is back in the session, as well as Lunar Zodiac now, so looks as though we're back up to 8 cars for the grid. 4 minutes remaining inside the qualification session as well. So Lunar looks as though he's now just making his way out for his outlap. CMC still sat in the pits. He'll be doing some quick adjustments and then getting out on track as soon as possible. Also, ladies and gents, let me use this time to mention our Gt3 race tonight at 8 o'clock. You'll be able to join myself and the console for that one with what is always a very popular championship running in the GT3s. It's actually going to be a fantastic race around the tricky circuit of Zolder, so expect plenty of high braking, late manoeuvres going into that one. It'll be a really tricky track to race alongside 15 other cars, especially when they're all pretty equal in terms of the speed. So tune in live at YouTube at 8 o'clock tonight for that one. But for now, let's focus on these Formula Renaults. Bruce Law still 0.343 seconds above the rest of the field. Fast AF Gamer doing his best to try and minimise that gap or try and leapfrog him and take that podium position. Tyjo remains in third with Dirt Diggler in fourth. Speedy Gone Hog in fifth. In fact, it looks as though Luna has just knocked Speedy down a place, able to put in a 128.121 to put him into fifth place. Speedy Gone Hog now remains in the pits. He's going to have to get himself out quick because it is a long circuit, this one, out on an outlap, so he's going to have to make a move as he does do. Luna Zodiac now out there to set another one. Sorry, Speedy Gone Hog remaining inside the pits, as is Rock G. So 2 minutes 10 and it's looking pretty secure to be Bruce Law's. What do you make of the chances for the rest of the guys on this one, Lucky?
Well, I'm just taking a look at our standing tables in the background and looking at the previous performance figures from the guys. Like I said, Speedy Gone Hog finishing well in the GT1s. But I wouldn't rule Luna out, like I said, in this race. I know for well he's put some practice in here. But Dirt Diggler, again, another consistent driver. Not necessarily the quickest guy out on track, but I think he prides himself on keeping good lines, tight lines, and keeping the car on the black stuff. So I really think it could be anybody's. I think having a decent start, and like you said, the tyre degradation, choosing the right pressures in the tyres and making sure you're maintaining that tyre wear, really could make it anybody's race. One thing we haven't mentioned at this stage, which I think could also impact the standings, is pit stops. With a 45-minute race here, I think it's definitely going to be a one-stop strategy, if not a two-stop strategy. So I think that potentially could really see a shuffling of the order of the cars if we get some guys doing a two-stop strategy.
I think the pit strategies it'll always begin with how much tyre degradation a driver's setup is pumping in when the laps start to increase, but it does come down to a major factor as well of any slight lapses in concentration. There are some pretty close walled sections here around Hockenheim Ring, so you can quite easily just make a slight mistake, take off that front end plate of your front wing, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself 1.5 seconds down on your time, and also cooking the tyres as you're spinning them up through the loss of traction. So I think that plays the major effect in these 45-minute races of keeping the concentration. Even if the pace isn't blisteringly quick, consistency does pay off, especially when you can try and maybe push for a no-stop race. So the qualification session is now underway. We're now looking at drivers looking to put in and finish their final laps. We've got Bruce Law, Fast AF Gamer, Dirt Diggler and Luna Zodiac all out on track at the moment. We're currently tracking around Bruce Law, who is the provisional pole sitter. Fastest lap so far in the session, a 1 minute 23.819. Let's have a look what he's able to put in on this one. He is only coming through the the first sector of this circuit, so there's plenty left to come from Bruce Law. We'll try and keep an eye out on the rest of the guys there. Looks as though Fast AF Gamer has pretty much secured himself a second spot. Luna Zodiac there unable to make any headway, so it's down to Dirt Diggler and Bruce Law. Is Dirt Diggler going to be able to get himself up onto the first row, or is he going to have to settle for the second row? It's not going to be any less than that, as we see him just catching onto the kitty litter, running a little bit wide there. That's going to be an abandoned lap, I'm sure.
Mobile 1 curve taking is another victim. As you said, with the tyre degradation, that I think that is one of the corners that is really going to catch drivers out. It is essentially the straight on Mobile 1 curve, the tyres on the exit. as you come into Sachs. So I know myself that after 2 or 3 laps, I struggle with the tyre degradation, particularly with the hot track. So that's going to play a big effect. Both big right-handers, sorry.
Okay, so with qualifying complete, let's have a little look and run down through our running order. Bruce Law ends up taking up the pole position spot, so it will be a bonus point for Bruce Law come the end of this race for that pole position, and he'll be looking to try and secure himself the extra bonus point as well for the fastest lap within the race. Fast AF Gamer, aka Matthew, does enough for the front row alongside Bruce Law. Second place for him on the grid. Taijo does enough for third position, so great running there from our young Filipino driver. Dirk Diggler does enough for fourth position in the end. Hopefully he'll be able to sort out that Mobil 1 corner woe and get himself set up for the race. Luna Zodiac, quite a late arrival. He does enough for fifth spot on the grid. Speedy Gone Hog, our latest marshal within the Flux Motorsport team, does enough for sixth position on grid. And then Rock G ends up at the back of the running order. Quite a bit off the pace, but it'd be interesting to see how many laps he managed to get in. It wouldn't be many because he did get disconnected from the session, I believe. But let's have a look at how that's going to transpire as we get the drivers onto the grid. They're going to have 2 minutes to set their cars up now for this 45-minute race. They're going to have to try and make sure that they balance their fuel loads correctly, get their pit strategies set up, and take the gambles. It definitely costs you time trying to adjust your pit strategy whilst in the car, whilst trying to maintain around about 150 miles an hour, 160 miles an hour inside these Formula Renaults, while taking what is quite a technical circuit in your stride without losing much time going through your multiple settings within your Motec. So with 1 minute pretty much gone of the setup time, 7 drivers on grid. Bruce Law looking to try and make it 2 wins out of 2 in the Formula Renaults, but 5 wins out of 5 within all of Flux Motorsports championships. It will certainly be a massive achievement. It's going to be a struggle for anybody to break this run of form, that's for sure.
I think, yeah, with the Gt3 race that we've got this evening as well, which I believe Bruce is his sixth and ultimate race for seeing out the second round. That will be a clean sweep for Bruce, so he'll be certainly looking to finish first, start and finish first here at Hockenheim. So not long now as we get underway.
Yeah, final 30 seconds remaining of the driver's setup time, and then we'll be going onto the grid for lights out. Interesting around this Hockenheim circuit that Bruce Law does actually have the inside line coming up into turn 1, but the outside line can be made to work by Fast AF Gamer, provided he sticks out of trouble from any of the cars behind him. This is one of the benefits to a lower grid. You've not got 15 cars behind you waiting to anticipate any mistakes being made. It's going to be much less. But we're about to get this one underway then. Just waiting for the lights. Keep an eye out from the start from our 2 front drivers. As we get underway here at Hockenheim, looks to be a good away from Bruce Law and Fast AF Gamer. In fact, all drivers looking to get away pretty quick, except for Speedy Gone Hog, who drops down to the back of the grid. Rock G ends up making up a place from that one. So Bruce Law leads ahead of Fast AF Gamer. Looks as though Taijo's dropped down as well. Dirk Diggler is able to take up third position. As we can see, the navy blue livery of Taijo there looks to just be struggling to maybe keep his car in check. Not sure what has gone on there, but let's see whether or not he can maintain his lines. We can just see him driving a little bit offline compared to the rest of the drivers. Remember, folks, that DRS is enabled at all times during this session, as with all sessions within the Formula Renaults. So these guys will have DRS at their disposal throughout practice sessions, qualification, and throughout the race, able to use to their benefit whenever they feel like it. But Bruce Law is able to gain up just over a second lead within halfway of this first lap. Fast AF Gamer is going to want to try and keep in touch. We've now got the split times just showing at the bottom of your screen there. So we see Taijo and Dirk Diggler already losing out almost 4 seconds to the what is dramatic pace of Bruce Law and Fast AF Gamer. Let's stick about with Tyjo and Dirk Diggler at the moment. Tyjo losing that position just off the line. Looks as though he gets a little bit wide on the final corner there, but he is tucked into the slipstream of Dirk Diggler. And it looks as though we've got Luna Zodiac as well, also trying to manipulate that slipstream as much as possible. But Tyjo perhaps just going over the track limits there. It is potentially going to be a slowdown for him. And it looks as though Speedy Gone Hog has managed to get up onto the back of Rock G as well. So Speedy Gone Hog looking to try and take that place back. Doesn't want to finish in 7th place come the end of this one, but there is 43 minutes remaining of this session, a long way to go. So these drivers will just look to try and slip into their own rhythm, run their own race and make sure that they don't push too hard too soon. Bruce Law's managed to get that gap up now to 2 seconds ahead of Fast AF Gamer. They're both running 3 seconds, or in fact 3.5 seconds ahead of 3rd position now, so you can actually visibly see that they're out of sight as we see Fast AF Gamer there just trailing behind Bruce Law. So Dirk Diggler is getting absolutely hounded by Tyjo here, but Tyjo's just overdriven himself there, runs a little bit wide. He's going to have to lift off, or that is going to be a slowdown penalty from the race director. That's going to allow Dirk Diggler now to push even further and try and build up a little bit of a buffer zone now ahead of Tyjo. Give himself a bit of breathing room, maybe able to lift off a little bit sooner and brake that little bit sooner just to try and make sure that he doesn't kill those tyres. What do you reckon of this start then, Lecky? Was it as expected? I know it's a bit of a surprise to see Speedy Gone Hog drop down, but not much movement throughout the rest of the pack. Yeah,
I mean, I think the surprises were I was expecting potentially to see Luna in 5th place do it a little bit better.
There, Lecky. It looks as though Speedy Gone Hog has just got past Rock G, so able to make that move count. Yeah. Sorry, do continue, mate.
I was expecting to see possibly Luna do a little bit better off the start initially, and potentially get a couple more spots off the start. Potentially not a great start from him. So let's drop back the order there, but he does look like he's keeping up with Tyjo and Dirk Diggler there for that battle for 3rd spot. I think the other mentionable thing is Dirk Diggler. Great start from Dirk, really great to see. So it
was a great start from Dirk Diggler. He has got a slight advantage over Tyjo. That being said, anybody that's ever played Project Cars 2 either on a control pad or on the wheel, as we just see, it looks as though Luna has absolutely lost it. Looks as though his rear end just absolutely came away with him, and that is going to be some heavy damage. He really took an impact there, and we can see the
damage there.
I think there's more than that as well. I'm expecting quite a lot of suspension damage. The front wing is actually bent around on the front of that Formula Renault, and we can hear him there just trying to balance the throttle and limp that car home to the pits. That's going to cost Luna Zodiac. I think it was a mistake under his own making. Luckily, didn't have too far to travel to get himself back into that pit lane. As I was saying there, anybody that's played this game, as we see Tyjo there making an error as well, he manages to catch it, so he didn't spin the car around, just ends up losing a whole lot of acceleration. That's not going to bother him too much though, after Luna lost traction and has basically lost keeping up with the back of Tyjo 12-12. But Tyjo is at a detriment, really, in my opinion, setting off using a control pad, not able to feel the benefit of a clutch and just engaging your clutch when that green light comes on. So having to rely on traction control and the limitations that a gamepad brings. I know I have to run with a gamepad when taking some of the graphic images that you see used here at Flux Motorsport, and I can't keep the car on the track for longer than maybe more than 3 corners. Certainly not with the way that I'm set up.
That's right, and I think not only that disadvantage, but I think Tyjo's also another disadvantage in the time difference that he's got. There's also the time lag. I believe he joins us over from the Philippines, if I'm not mistaken, which is quite difficult for him to fit our races into his schedule. Formula Renault's, albeit better for his schedule, but still has to be a little bit out of kilter in order to get to our races. So I think, he's doing quite well. Still in 4th place in this race, so albeit might be getting a little bit squirrely from time to time, I still expect him to finish well here at Hockenheim.
Yeah, I'm expecting the same as well. I mean, he's just come out of the pit, so potentially getting a little bit of damage repair going on there. Oh, I beg your pardon? No, he wasn't coming out the pits. It was my timing boards throwing anomalies at me there. But currently 16...
that was Luna in the pits.
Yeah, 16 seconds behind the running order. So it's not out of reach for Taijo. I mean, speaking about the time difference, it is 6 o'clock in the evening over in the Philippines at the moment. So this one that Taijo gets very excited about because he doesn't have to stay up till the early hours of the morning to compete in it. But he is struggling a little bit coming out of that turn. That's maybe the third time that I've seen him run wide there. And that is going to result in either slowdown penalties or an eventual time penalty being applied by the race director. So he's going to have to try and watch that one, maybe just adjust his driving line a little bit. Now following on with Dirk Diggler, 15 seconds away from the leader at the moment, but he is keeping pretty good pace with them. He's not losing much time throughout the sectors, through a lot of the lap. You can see a huge boundary has now formed between our race leader Bruce Law and Fast AF Gamer, around about 9 seconds. I do suspect that that's a mistake being made by Fast AF Gamer, and if it was a mistake, it was probably loss of control and a bit of a spin for it to be that big of a deficit. He was previously running around about 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds behind the race leader. So he's slipped around about 7 seconds there, but he is starting to claw it back. We can see those split times dropping now. He's just about to go sub 9 seconds, I believe. In fact, it just started to eke its way back up. I'd like to thank everybody that's tuned in here for this Formula Renault race. Please do feel free to leave a comment on YouTube. Let us know your predictions by the time that this race plays out. And let us know whereabouts in the world you're watching it. We'd love to hear from you. But back on over to you, Lecky. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I was just saying with Bruce and Fast as his lap times now. I think they're playing tit for tat now. I think it's just a case of both trying to maintain race pace. Both will still be heavy on fuel at this stage. And lap 6 now, both have started to get some sort of tyre effect, some sort of degradation of the tyres, some front end slip or a twitchiness at the rear end. I think as Tajo's experienced it. So I think really for these guys now, it's just going to be a case of how long can they maintain this sort of 126 lap pace for. This is a couple of seconds away from what we're getting in qualifying, around about that. So this is most definitely not them at a push, and them just trying to maintain a steady stride, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, let's not forget that Hockenheim is a relatively short circuit here. These drivers able to put in less than 1 minute 30s, and this is at a slow pace, so they are going to have to put in a lot of laps come the end of this 45-minute session, which means that they're going to be running with a heavy fuel load. And quite often I think this might be the mistake that we've seen a few drivers making, potentially the Taijo mistakes that we've seen with him understeering and running wide, and perhaps the mistake from Luna Zodiac. You quite often get these guys running in the qualification setups where they'll have really low fuel loads. They'll perhaps have maybe enhanced the tyre setups to try and increase that pace when they are qualifying. But then when you switch on over to your race setup and you've got, you know, in excess of 30 laps worth of fuel sat within the tank, that's going to really play about with the load that the tyres are going under, and also the amount of mechanical load that the car is going under as it goes through those lateral sections, heavy and high downforce turns. The car's going to be a lot more unbalanced than it was inside the qualification with a low fuel load.
I think you're right, yeah, and I think potentially that's what Luna was suffering before. I mean, behind our leaders with the 126s and 125 that Bruce just put in now, so that's potentially our fastest lap so far this race. But behind the leaders, Luna's just put in a 127, so I think you're right with the potential setups and selection that we've got here. Maybe some of the guys are running more with the qualifying setup for overall pace per lap, and some of the guys have gone a little bit more for the long haul. So I think that's more car selection with car setup. Again, not really, like you said, tyre selection, but tyre setup really making a difference here, and it's starting to come into effect even so early on in lap 8 in this race. So
Definitely does. I mean, looking at Luna Zodiac, apart from his pit stop, he's actually running pretty well. I mean, he's able to keep up with the rest of the cars. I mean, his lap times are definitely showing that. He lapped 8 seconds quicker than Rock G that last time around. So I will expect Luna Zodiac to be able to savour this one, as we see Rock G there getting really messy. Looking, again, looked as though he didn't look as though he sort of slid the car. It looked as though it was understeer, which is surprising on that particular turn, and quite surprising in these cars as well. So can't see any damage on his car. Maybe just getting caught out.
Yeah, I think it was a result of overcorrection. That I think he's come into that corner, and with the adverse camber, you have to overcorrect for the understeer, which potentially throws the car out wide if you if it snaps back on you. So
let's see whether or not he can pull his lap times back in, though. But Luna Zodiac is bearing down, so Luna Zodiac has been able to make up around about 1 minute's worth of difference between him and Rock G. So he'll be looking to try and get into that 6th spot come the end of this race, and perhaps even with any mistakes from Speedy Gonhog, might even be looking for a top 5 finish here. Bruce Law is still the leader, though. He's got 12 seconds ahead of Fast AF Gamer, who in himself has got around about 12 seconds ahead of the 3rd place of Dirk Diggler. Things a lot closer between 3rd and 4th. Dirk Diggler and Tyjo currently running a couple of seconds between each other. It looks as though Tyjo there, though, getting acquainted with some cones.
I think he's still got a cone. He's collected one and he's taking that one for a ride with him, Murphy.
Not on my screen, mate, but yeah, I'm not surprised. They're running pretty low, these things. And imagine the absolute calamity that you'd have with an open wheel car trying to drag a cone around. Don't think you'd see that in real world racing.
It's not the kind of aerodynamic result that you want, is it?
Definitely not. No, it's definitely going to upset the balance of the car. But Tyjo, although he's made some mistakes, the rest of his pace, which was clear in qualification, seems to be keeping him just in touch with Dirk Diggler. So even though he is, potentially having runoffs, I mean, perhaps if you'd be able to bring up the timing boards for us, Lecky, we can have a look, see whether or not he's incurred any penalties on this one. So currently, only a 10-second penalty from Luna Zodiac. No other penalties across the board. We can flip back down to the action now. So Tyjo looks as though he's able to clear off any slowdown penalties that he's getting for those breach of track limits, and still managing to keep within, I'd say, 2 or 3 seconds of Dirk Diggler. So don't rule out Tyjo for a top 3 finish just yet. The podium is definitely still within touch, and there is still 30 minutes remaining of this session to go, so plenty of time to do it.
With the mistakes that are being made, I don't think there are more or less mistakes being made by Tyjo on any given lap. His lap times seem consistently in the 129 region, and they haven't really fluctuated, whereas we've seen some of the other drivers jumping from 127s to 130s and back again. So potentially managing to keep consistent lap times, even if the car is twitching on him. So
let's have a look at whether or not you can maybe claw this down a little bit when we get to the later stages of it. Looks as though all drivers seem to be settling into their pace there, as we see Speedy Gonhog just making his way past, I do believe that was Rock G. Oh, perhaps not. No, Rock G in the Vazmac liveries. Speedy Gonhog it settled into a reasonable pace here. Currently lapping just a few tenths down on Tyjo 1212. He has got quite a bit of time to make up, it seems, but not out of reach yet. So any mistakes from any of these drivers, especially when the tyre degradation really starts to play into an effect, as well as the tyre temperatures, as we see Luna Zodiac looks as though he's coming into the pits once again. That's not going to do his race any good, but he is still due for a 7th place finish, which will help him, I suppose, in the standings. Can't see much damage on that car.
Can't be further damage. Yeah, if you look at the front, there's a switch on the front end. It looks like it is crabbing a little. So
I think that's been there since that big collision that we saw. Because I did notice he popped back on screen. But yeah, he is definitely coming in for some more damage repairs. So I wonder whether or not he's just
that looks
caught
like a long one.
No, not this time around.
Oh, he's away.
obviously just thought it's better, you know, he's that far away that perhaps he can get his car completely cleared up of all damages, push hard, and try and get back some of that gap to Rock G. He's going to do well to try and catch Rock G, though. That gap is now back up to just under 3 minutes. He did manage to get it down to around about 2, so Luna's lap times did get him within touching distance, but any more stops, I think that is going to be game over and a 7th place finish for Luna Zodiac.
Yeah, I think that's Matthew who's come out behind, so Fast as Gamer has come out behind there. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, in the D'Amberville. It looks as though Dirk Diggler and Tyjo still duking it out at the moment, around about 2 seconds difference between them. That is definitely going to be the battle to follow. These two drivers looking really well matched, it seems.
Yeah, I think we've got less than half an hour left in this session now, so it's going to be between these two for this battle for third spot. I mean, Speedy's not done for you. I know full well that he's looking to gain as many points as he can with the 3rd spot finish and potentially a 5th spot finish here or better. So I wouldn't count Speedy out of this yet, but certainly Dirk and Tadio here are the ones where potentially this could go either way.
That being
so
said, Lucky,
Speedy
Gone Hog is losing, or he was losing time hand over fist in that last sector. I was just watching his split times. It looked as though he was losing maybe 1/3 of a second every second, and it does look to be sneaking back up. I wonder whether or not he's maybe just easing off the pace a little bit, trying to save those tyres, or whether or not we've seen...
he's potentially overrun him, I think, with the front end slide.
Well, he may have missed a mistake, and he might have just had a little bit of a spin, and maybe just, I mean, you'll know as much as any other sim racer that when you do lose your concentration ever so slightly and perhaps have a little bit of a wobble, it can knock yourself, and it can take you a couple of laps to try and get back into that. I know I certainly suffered in the GT1s around Monza with that particular issue, holding myself quite well until I made a mistake, and then trying to get my head back in the game after that mistake was tricky. But we'll have to wait and see what Speedy Gone Hog can do. We'll keep an eye out on his splits, but at the moment he's losing a lot of time to our leaders, which is, of course, Bruce Law at the moment, currently tracking him around the circuit. Fast AF Gamer currently running just under 20 seconds behind Bruce Law. In fact, Bruce Law looks as though he's had a dramatic turn of pace in comparison to the rest of the drivers. Currently running, 4 whole seconds near or nearabouts quicker than anybody else on the grid that last time around. Very competent driver inside these Formula Renaults. We know that from his previous Rubbins Racing results, where he was actually a back-to-back championship winner in the Formula Renaults. Nobody able to compete. So I'll have to wait and see how this one plays out, but he is starting to come up to a back marker now. I'll have to wait and see whether or not that's Luna Zodiac. I think it might be.
And that's a good point you raised there, Murphy. I think from racing with Bruce in Rubbins Racing and seeing the kind of speed that he had during those championship races, I certainly think between then and now, between the months that have passed between then and now, if anything, I think his pace is increasing in Formula Renaults.
Oh, definitely. Well, he's one of those drivers where he, he'll always be there to help out. But our maybe less experienced drivers, give them a few tips and tricks, but he will be practicing, usually in a lockdown environment, as well as within our community races, working on the little tweaks just to try and make that car as well balanced and as well suited for the track. He's a really meticulous driver, the sort of Nicky Lauda philosophy of man and machine, suiting the track down to an absolute T, whereas I know I'm a pretty slapdash driver when it comes to my setups, and that's where the difference shows. I think that little bit of extra time and care to know what your car's doing and tweak it to the track quite clearly pays off for the drivers that do it. Not to take away any of the natural talent from these drivers. I mean, they are naturally quick, as we see what has been a huge accident there. Is that Luna Zodiac once again having an absolute torrid affair around this Hockenheim ring. He has just gone past the pit lane exit as well. It looks as though he's collecting all sorts. That car looks as though it's pretty much unable to drive. And we see him there retire into the pit lane. So we have lost a driver in Lunar Zodiac. Looks as though his car just too unbalanced, it seems. Speedy Gone Hog also going slow to allow the front markers through under blue flag conditions. Makes plenty of leave there for Bruce Law. As we see Dirk Diggler has come into the pits. That's now released Taijo as well into third position and able to make some pretty big bounds there. So it's been quite a lengthy stop. Well, I'm not too sure, you know, Leggy, because just looking at the timing boards, let's see when it refreshes when he actually gets himself back on track. But he's currently nearly 2 minutes behind Taijo, it seems. 1 minute 56 seconds. So I think it might have been a lengthy stop. I think I may have just missed the notification with all the action that was going on with Lunar Zodiac flipping crazy on turn 2.
That was horrific. That was the worst crash I think I've seen, certainly this season.
Let's just say it's a good job that this is sim racing. He wouldn't be walking away from that one with a smile on his face in the real world. But Dirk Diggler now back on track. Let's have a look, see whether or not his lap times have improved. We didn't see whether or not he came in for tyres, but it's getting to around about that stage where a tyre change might be beneficial. Although these guys can deal with the tyre degradation as the race progresses, you will start to see the lap times just coming away a little bit as the tyres start to get heated up, perhaps. We do notice that these tyres go through a couple of different stages, so you may have a period quite early on in tyre wear where you'll start to lose a little bit of time and then the tyres will come back, as we see a bit of a mistake there from Speedy Gone Hog, just running a little bit wide into the kitty litter. So he gets himself back on track, not much lost. But then, as the tyre degradation settles, you'll start to see a big drop and then that fall off the cliff where you'll start to lose seconds and seconds off your lap time, no matter how smooth or cleanly you're trying to drive the car.
Yeah, I think that's potentially what Speedy was suffering from then. He was trying to keep up with Dirk in front. Dirk was on a fresh set of tyres, and I believe that Speedy's yet to pit. So potentially just trying to keep up with the pace of the car in front, and a little bit of dirty air and the tyre degradation, proving a little bit too much, and Speedy ran a little bit too wide there.
Perhaps, yeah. Now we have seen Bruce Law now come into the pit, so we've had a change in our leadership. Fast AF Gamer has just gone across and overtaken Bruce Law while he was sat inside the pit lane. This is going to be a change for tyres, I believe. I don't think there's going to be much damage on that car whatsoever. So expect full attack mode now from Bruce Law as he tries to make up that distance between himself and Fast AF Gamer. Currently showing up with 1 minute 26 seconds difference, but I knew that wasn't the case. It now comes down to 9 seconds difference between the two drivers. So Bruce Law will be putting the hammer down now to try and claw that in, and look at the split times just dropping away in that particular section, clawing back plenty. Don't forget these split times are live depending on where the cars are on track, so you will see big fluctuations when one car ahead is perhaps going through a slow section and the car behind is hooning it down the straights. But Bruce Law has made big inroads there from his pit stop, pushing hard for sure to try and get that pole position back to make sure that he can dominate yet another race within this Formula Renault Championship. It's something that we've seen plenty of times at both Rubbins Racing and now at the new home of motorsport at Flux. So let's see whether or not perhaps Fast AF Gamer is a very competent driver, especially defensively, so we'll wait and see. He's definitely not going to make it easy for Bruce Law to try and get past, but are we going to see Fast AF Gamer maybe coming for some tyres a little bit later down the line? His lap times aren't too bad at the moment, around about 1.5 seconds slower than what we've seen through his average race pace, which of course is around about 3 seconds slower than their qualifying pace here around the Hockenheim ring. So perhaps tyre degradation just starting to take effect for Fast AF Gamer.
Yeah, yet to pit. He still seems to be getting reasonable lap times in. Dropped a little bit, a couple of seconds to the 128. So I think we saw 126 was standard race pace, maybe 4 or 5 laps ago. So, but I think most guys are still yet to pit. That not damage related, with the exception of Bruce. So I will expect to see maybe 1 or 2 cars start to filter in now. and just get those tyres replaced.
I do know from the chatter within the Discord in the Formula Renault channel that Gt3 was struggling a little bit with tyre degradation. May well have been through lockups, really. Again, running with a gamepad, you're going to have less feel through your brake pedals when it's all controlled by your fingers or your thumbs. So interesting that we have seen him make a pit stop. I'm not sure whether or not he came in for tyres. I doubt it very much. I think it was just purely damage related. But his lap times have fallen away ever so slightly, around about a second, maybe 2 seconds.
He's still in the 129s though at this stage, and that's it. I think he's coming into pit.
Yeah, I think we've called it right. We'll stay on board with him. Let's see whether or not he comes in for some tyres when he does finally get in there.
So, and Rock's also pitted.
Yeah, Rock G also into the pits. Let's see whether or not this is a damage repair or tyres. I think it is going to be tyres. You can just see him in the background there. Looks as though Taijo also getting some damage repairs, as is Rock G. Let's see who comes out first out of these two. It looks as though Rock G is going to be able to get away, but they're going to be he's not going to be able to overtake him within the pit lane. Yeah, very close. In the meantime, Bruce Law has got within 2 seconds now of Fast AF Gamer. So he's bearing down on him at the moment.
That's Mobile 1 corner coming round. So yeah, again, really difficult. I think that's where we've seen most of our action so far. It is on the exit of Mobile 1 corner, just as the car's running a little bit wide there, picking up the dirt on the inside tyre and losing a little bit of speed. So, but it's not just that. I think with the tyre degradation as well, picking up the dirt, running over the bumps, all that's going to take its effect on the tyres as well.
Most definitely, yeah, most definitely. So we've got Bruce Law now under DRS as we see a huge mistake there from Fast AF Gamer. That is definitely going to be some heavy front end damage. Looked as though he just got a snap back away from him coming out of turn 1, and that's going to see him coasting round for an entire lap, trying to keep that car on as much of a straight and narrow as he can. Doesn't look to have unbalanced him too bad.
I think it's going to force a pit now.
Oh, it's definitely going to force a pit. Yeah, most definitely. Whether or not he now comes in for tyres, I mean, adding tyres on is going to be around about 10 seconds if you're getting all 4 corners changed. I think it would be beneficial to try and do so, but that has just allowed Bruce Law to put the hammer down even further, build up a 6-second lead, and this is going to be more like 10, maybe 12, 15 seconds come the end of this lap with only 16 minutes remaining of the session. We are in lap 20.
I was about to say that that's potentially going to give Dirk Diggler the chance to catch up and potentially overtake him when they come in, but that might not just be it. I mean, Taijo, by the looks of it, has just caught up with him.
Yeah, I think you're quite right there, Lecky. I think, to be honest, I think even Speedy Gone Hog is going to have a huge chance in overtaking Fast AF Gamer on this one. It's going to be a lengthy pit stop. He definitely came into that wall hard. I mean, anybody that knows Hockenheim knows that first corner is fast. So he's come at that probably 5th, maybe even 6th gear. I think more likely 5th after a slight bit of braking. So he's come into that hard and fast, and I imagine that there's going to be some suspension damage along with that front wing damage. Whether or not there's any engine and gearbox damage as well.
It was a heavy knock on that front right side, wasn't it? So, I mean, definitely suspension damage, like you said, but potentially more.
You can't quite get it when your car comes around and you have all 4 corners slapping. I know it happens to me sometimes in the Formula Renaults. If you hit that wall with both sides of tyres, you can quite easily damage your gearbox and drivetrain as well. So we'll have to wait and see, as we see Taijo there making a big mistake, running really wide now, deep into the gravel trap. And it has spun him around as well. He's managed to get himself back on, but that has seen Taijo now slip down to 4th position. Still yet to see. It looked like he
came into that section. It looks like he got upset with the dirty air and just got a little too close to that wall.
He did, yeah. And he did manage to avoid the wall, but it's definitely going to cost him in terms of time, that's for sure. No damage, and that is quite often the main thing. So currently Bruce Law sat 21 seconds ahead of Fast AF Gamer. Fast AF Gamer is currently driving around with a heavily damaged car. We will see him coming into the pits this next time around. So Dirt Diggler in 3rd position, Taijo 12-12 in 4th with Speedy Gone Hog just coming into the pits, actually, it seems. And it looks as though he's completely stopped on pit entrance and a retirement from Speedy Gone Hog. So it
looks like he missed an incident there, potentially.
Yeah, potentially so. I mean, he'd managed to get himself into the pit lanes. Not sure why he's not been able to return to that one. So it's going to have cost him a huge stack full of points there. So 5 cars remaining inside today's race around Hockenheim. We're yet to see Fast AF Gamer return to the pits, I don't believe. I don't think he'll have stayed out. So I think he must still be completing the lap where he actually got some damage. Yeah, you can see no front end on that car.
No, I think he's certainly done another lap. He's on the next lap.
Isn't he? I mean, his lap times are running slowly as well.
It must be drivable. That's all I can say. I mean, I know how difficult these things are to drive with damage on the rear suspension, but on the front end, actually, you can take your time. You can still get the car around him. And last lap was a 1:41, so I mean, he's 10 seconds away from the other guys, but he's got a 30-second gap. So potentially, he's still going to maintain some distance here, but eventually he's going to want to pit and get that damage repaired and his tyres replaced. I think he's just waiting, potentially just to see the tyres out.
I think he's definitely treading a thin line here, though. I think looking at his lap times, he's going to get caught up by Taijo, who's now breaking into the
low 128s. It's a strange strategy.
Yeah, it's certainly. I mean, he may make it pay off. There's 12 minutes remaining of the session. He's currently down 33 seconds to Taijo. It's whether or not he can try and maybe bring in some extra pace this time around. Let's have a look at what his lap times are saying. Just about to cross the line now. It's a 140.4 that last time around, so losing around about 12 seconds a lap. That means that in 3 laps' time, we're going to have Taijo raining down upon him. Not sure. Maybe the amount of damage that's been sustained, he actually thinks that it's going to be a pit stop in the region of 2 or 3 minutes, and he's not going to have that opportunity to come back. So maybe using up his defensive strategies to try and make it as difficult as he can for Taijo, but it shouldn't be hard for him as long as he can keep it within those track limits. Taijo has been struggling with that quite a lot today. Not seeing any race penalties issued by the race director, so it looks as though he is slowing down sufficiently enough to not have any time penalties added on. So no harm, no foul for Taijo. Currently sat in 3rd place ahead of Dirk Diggler.
Yeah, looking like he's managing to push and moderate where he needs to, just to keep the car in check. So I hear from him, but I wouldn't count Dirk Diggler out. I mean, I think we've seen him come in for tyres once already, and I think he's let him coming in again.
He's coming in again, yeah.
I think he's just coming again.
So he came on quite early on in this session. I don't think we've seen him make any mistakes yet, so we can just make an assumption that it's tyres. No, I don't think he's made any contact with anything. I think it will potentially just be a tyre change. I'd expect this to be a relatively quick pit. Let's have a look though. It does look to be a lengthy one, so maybe a mistake being made, or perhaps having his car a little bit too highly strung.
It did look like it was driving a little on the way into the pit lane, so.
Yeah, perhaps his car just a little bit too highly strung there, running with the radiator closed. He may just be suffering through engine damage. Maybe making a bit of a rookie error there and leaving the radiator too closed on a hot day around Germany. And that then just costing him engine damage as the race progresses. And it will get worse and worse. It's not a linear scale. It actually starts to get into an exponential bit of damage as it progresses through. You get to 40 or 50% and that engine will start to lose a lot of power very quickly. So Dirk Diggler remains in the pits now. It looks as though he may come under some pressure from Rock G. In fact, Rock G is now overtaken him. Rock G now into 4th position. Dirk Diggler drops all the way down into 5th after a lengthy pit stop. So it's Bruce Law leading the race after lap 25 with 9 minutes remaining of this session. Fast AF Gamer, although he's driving with a hell of a lot of damage, he's currently doing enough to maintain 2nd position, but 16 seconds behind 16 seconds behind him, you've got Taijo 1212 trying to rain down. just having news come through the pit lane there that Speedy Gone Hog has actually suffered with a wheel malfunction. Apparently his wheel trying to centre itself, so that's why we saw him duck out, and why it was quite unconventional that he left his car sort of parked up in the pit lane. Obviously just unable to drive that one.
Yeah, I know from talking to him in the paddock earlier that the pit crew were working feverishly away earlier to try and get that car and get that wheel in some sort of condition where it was drivable. They had the soldering kit out and everything, from what I understand. Plastic fumes filling the garage and making it almost unbreathable from what the report said. So, but yeah, it looks like it's at lap 26, lap 25. It's eventually taking its toll, and that's given the ghost up. So, unfortunate for Speedy.
Yeah, unfortunate indeed. He was looking to try and pick up some points, but it looks as though Taijo has found himself now deep in the running order. It looks as though we're currently 9 seconds back, or ever so slightly less. We can actually see him there building up in the distance to Fast AF Gamer. Fast AF Gamer, remember, running with some damage. We can see Bruce Law's lap times now starting to come down as that fuel load burns out into the atmosphere. Bruce Law just seems to get quicker and quicker, now getting sub 126s, so that is the fastest lap of the race so far in terms of race pace, I think. So he is looking to try and pick up that bonus point. It is indeed 125.359, the current fastest lap of the race. So bonus points are currently sat with Bruce Law. We'll have to wait and see whether or not any of the drivers out on track will try and look to beat that. Fast AF Gamer now struggling to keep that rear end in check. We can see it trying to get away from him, and we can see Taijo in that navy blue livery now as he makes his move around the outside, and he makes it really easy. So the decision not to come into the pits has already cost him one position for Fast AF Gamer. Is it going to cost him a potential podium as this race plays out? He has got plenty of time ahead of Rock G at the moment, with only 6 minutes remaining. Fast AF Gamer certainly making it difficult for himself. I did think it was a strange strategy not to come in and get those repairs done. I think with the out and out pace that Fast AF Gamer can have on setting lap times, I think with a fully repaired car he could have pushed quite hard to try and make up any places back.
Well, I don't think Rock G's without damage. From looking at the fairings on that Formula Renault was going past, it looks like it has been a little bit in the wars, but potentially just minor damage. And there is only 15 or so seconds. I can see, or maybe a bit more between. There's a little bit more. There's maybe a minute and a half, isn't there, between the lap times? So I don't think he's got it in it to catch Matt here. So not even with the difference in speed potentially in lap times, I just don't think it's possible.
No, I don't think so. Not without any... I mean, if he does decide to come into the pits, he may well lose that position, or if he makes a big mistake, don't forget he's currently driving a damaged car, which has definitely got no front aerodynamic downforce, and certain sections of this track will be quite heavily reliant. So we'll see his back end stepping out. We'll see him understeering exactly as it's just proven there onto the hairpin.
Pointy case,
yeah. That back end's going to want to try and get away from him. The front end's going to want to understeer, and he's going to be basically tiptoeing that car around, which is why we're seeing his lap times fall away so dramatically. So 6 minutes remaining, that makes out to be around about 4.5, maybe even 5 laps. And Rock G currently lapping around about 8 seconds quicker than Fast AF Gamer that last time around. So it's going to be a bit of a balance, but I don't think it's going to be enough. It's only going to make up around about 40 seconds, and as you quite rightly pointed out, he's got around about a minute and a half of a gain ahead of him.
I think the real battle that we might see is between 5th and 4th place. I think Dirk, since he's come in the pits for the second time, he's putting in slightly quicker laps than Rock. So by the time they get to the end of this race, you might see a battle for 4th place.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, 1 minute and 21 seconds with a 2-second difference, it might be hard pressed unless we see any major difference. Oh, I beg your pardon, my lap times have just popped right back up. I'm not sure what's going on with the timing boards here within Project Cars 2 today, but it's around about 4 seconds. So yeah, you're quite right, Lecky. Now that I'm getting the right information, looks as though Rock G is going to come under some pressure from the faster pace of Dirt Diggler. Wonder whether or not new tyres, maybe a little bit of aerodynamic repairs going on, and that's just given Dirk Diggler the incentive now to lap even faster. In fact, as we look at it, Taijo is now putting in really quick laps. He's able to break into the 1:27 margin, almost into the 1 minute 26s. So Taijo's pace has now picked up. To wait and see how that progresses. He's not going to be able to pressure Bruce Law. Bruce Law is currently lapping. It's around about 1 minute 25 seconds ahead of Taijo at this point. So it looks as though the race victory is going to be secure for Bruce. Go ahead, Lucky.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Bruce has got this one in the bag, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster of a race for Taijo. He's had some really great lap times. He's seen the car get a bit out of shape. He hasn't really put too much of a foot wrong though. There's been a few dips and a few positive points, but all in all, I'd say a solid performance here. I think that can show in his current race standings. So,
I mean, he'll certainly be happy, our young man, for the Philippines. Second place, I think he strives for a win, but I think he'll be very accepting of a podium. Finished just outside of the podium last time around, so it'll all count towards his championship standings as we go into race 3 next weekend.
Yeah, taking a little bit of a use of the track limits there on the outside as we
came a lot from him, haven't we? I mean, maybe it is just a case of him using a control pad. That's maybe costing him.
I think it's more driving style, more driving choice. I mean, we do see that he tends to run a little bit of the track limits, mainly on the exit of the corner. But like you said, there is obviously a lift off after that, and the race director is satisfied that time's been given back, and that seems to be his style, which it seems to be working for him today. So let's not knock it. Eh?
Yeah, definitely not. We see a big puff of smoke there on the exit. In fact, it looks as though he may have just been disconnected. Absolute calamity there for Taijo.
That's awful.
Now he has
unlucky.
He has come so close with just 1 minute and 30 remaining. So Fast AF Gamer now gets promoted into second position. Rock G ends up finding himself in third, and Dirk Diggler, persistence pays off. Perhaps he can actually take that final podium spot. He's definitely coming close with, it looks as though we've got maybe 1.5 laps remaining. Perhaps if you could bring up the map there, Lecky, we'll be able to see whereabouts these guys are currently running in terms of track position. So it looks as though we are going to have another lap of this one. It doesn't look as though these guys are going to have to decide it this time around. Dirk Diggler moves up the inside, and it's a clean pass in the end. Looks as though Rock G kind of accepted his fate there, moved over to the outside, and looks to come back and try and attack again. So we've got some wheel-to-wheel action here for the final podium spot of the day. And it looks as though Dirk Diggler and Rock G are going to duke this one out to the end. 27 seconds remaining of this session. There is going to be another lap for these two guys to duke it out as they come around the final sector into the final turn. And it looks as though Rock G is actually just making a big mistake there. He doesn't make any contact with the wall. Looks as though it just oversteered him. He ended up heading towards the wall and managed to swerve it in the end. But that has now given a huge advantage to Dirk Diggler, who now has around about 3 seconds, or just under 3 seconds of a lead ahead of Rock G. So Bruce Law now comes round to complete his final lap. And that will be the race over, and a race victory for Bruce Law. He does make it 5 wins in 5 Flux Motorsport races inside Season 1, looking to really stamp down his dominance. We're now
a great win for Bruce.
With Fast AF Gamer as he completes his lap. He is, of course, in second position after Taijo got disconnected. Ends up handing that one to him. Unfortunate for that, as we see him breaking down. Just entering the halfway mark now. It looks as though Dirk Diggler and Rock G have been able to bring that gap even closer once again. Let's see whether or not we're going to see any final lap action going on between these two. not too far away from the end of this one. So if Rockgy's going to make his moves, he's going to have to make it very soon, as we see a big lock up there, and it's cost him as well. I think maybe just cooking up the tyres ever so slightly with that big lock up might have just cost him a bit of a flat spot as well, and then unable to push it. But he had to roll the dice, I think, with only 2 corners remaining. So it's going to be Dirk Diggler that takes that 3rd position spot, just behind Fast AF Gamer. Rockgy ends up finishing in 4th spot, as we wait for Fast AF Gamer now to come across the start finish line and collect that checkered flag. That is going to be the race overall. We will, of course, wait for the final race standings once this one's completed. And here they come, ladies and gents. Bruce Law ends up finishing in 1st position with Fast AF Gamer in 2nd. As we expected, Dirk Diggler did enough to hold on for 3rd place. Rockgy in 4th. And Speedy Gone Hog, our unfortunate retirement for him after a bit of equipment failure there. Tyjo 1212 unfortunately disconnected from the session very late on, so he misses out on what would have been a definite penalty and 2nd place finish, I think, for him. But I think kudos goes out to Bruce Law, of course, for his win, and for Fast AF Gamer for deciding to stick it out and drive what was almost a third of the race with what seemed like some pretty heavy damage there.
Yeah, another great win from Bruce, and I'd be really happy with a 5th in a row, clean sweep so far, and looking forward to this evening's race, the GT3s at 8 PM. If I can get that in there.
That's right, ladies and gents. Lecky will be on track for that one, but you'll be able to join myself, Murphy_GBR, and the console for the GT3s. We're going to be live at around about 8 o'clock UK time, so make sure you join us for that one. If you didn't catch last week's race, by all means, head on over to our YouTube channel. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and then you won't miss any of the Flux Motorsport action, but you'll be able to find last week's GT3 race and get yourself updated on all of the to-ins and goings from that one ahead of tonight's race, which, as I said, will be hosted at 8 o'clock UK time. As for me in the box, I'd like to thank my co-commentator for the morning, Lecky2000. Thank you very much, mate.
Yeah, it's been great, Murphy. Thanking you.
Not a problem. And I have been your host, Murphy_GBR. If you want some more information about what we do here at Flux Motorsport, please head on over to www.fluxmotorsport.com, where you'll be able to join in this fantastic clean racing community and also find out more about what we have coming up. Also, be sure to check out, like, and subscribe to our social media channels to make sure you don't miss any of the action. But as for me, I've been your host, Murphy_GBR. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and I'll see you again later on, 8 o'clock UK time, for tonight's GT3 races. Have a good day ahead, folks.
And thanks for